Many chess games finish with king and pawn endings. Usually the number of the pawns is decisive and you can expect the player with the higher number of pawns to win. Just like in this position here, white's 3 pawns should be able to overpower black's 2 pawns. And that's exactly right, because black can't do much about white's advance of the d pawn. They're forced to capture this pawn if they want to stop the promotion. But even if they do, white's c pawn captures the black pawn on d6, and now the king is out of reach and nothing can stop the promotion of this pawn. Alright, obviously white were winning from this position. But what if black's king was on g7 instead of h7? Can white still win? Well, the answer is yes, but it's a bit tricky. The same pawn moves are not enough to win the game for white. As you can see, if white plays the same way, now black can stop this pawn because the black king can get inside this pawn square. When I say this pawn square, I mean an imaginary square that you can draw from this pawn towards the end of the board where this pawn is about to be promoted. And then you can draw another line across with the same number of squares that we have on this line. That would be like this, and this is the imaginary square that I was talking about. Now if the black king can get inside this square, that means that he can stop the promotion of the pawn. This is an easier way to calculate if you can reach your opponent's passed pawn without actually counting the squares. So that's exactly what the black king does. Gets close to the pawn, and even though white promotes a queen, it's captured straight away by the king, which brings black the draw. Obviously, this is not the way for white to win from this position. They can still win starting with d6, but after black captures the d6 pawn, white should continue c6 instead of capturing the pawn on d6, because this gives white a passed pawn out of the reach of the black king. And after the pawn exchange, the black king is outside of this pawn square. As you can see, the black king cannot get inside this square. That's why he's not able to stop the promotion of the queen, and white are easily winning this game. Alright, all this may have been obvious, because you should expect a higher number of pawns to overpower a lower number and break through. But can you expect to break through when there are even number of pawns on the board? Well, sometimes you can. For example, if we have a position like this one, where there are 3 pawns versus 3 pawns, just like here, you can actually break through again. And you can do it just with pawn moves. You don't need the help of your king. Even if your king is really far away, like this for example, you can still win from this position with white, even though one may think that black are actually winning because their king is closer to the pawns, which usually is the decisive factor. Alright, so how can you win from this position with white? Imagine you're playing white, it's your turn. What would you play now? If you want, you can hit the pause button and try to do it yourself first. You should be able to find the winning moves because there are not so many variations. And the winning move here for white is c6. Remember, always move the middle pawn first. Why is this winning? Well, let's think about it. It looks like black have to capture this pawn. They don't have much of a choice, because if they don't and play, for example, b6, then the c pawn can capture the d pawn and promote on the next move. Or if they moved the d pawn, then white can capture the b pawn and again promote on the next move. So obviously from this position black have to capture this pawn, and they have two choices. They can either capture it with the b pawn or with the d pawn. Let's try a capture with the b pawn first. What would you play with white now? Do you see the winning move? Well, the winning move would be d6, forcing black to capture your pawn on d6, because if they don't, you will capture the c7 pawn and promote on the next move. And after black captures this pawn, then nothing can stop the advance of the b pawn, which promotes in two more moves. And the other option for black here was to capture with the d pawn. Now the winning move for white would be b6, which is like a decoy. The point of this move is to lure away the c pawn from protecting the d6 square, because now nothing can stop the advance of the d pawn. This is how white are winning from this position. It is good to know that if you had only 3 pawns versus 4 pawns, this type of breakthrough will not work. As you can see, now black can safely capture the d pawn without allowing the b pawn to advance. But if you had 4 pawns versus 5 pawns, then the breakthrough works. This is how you do it. If black capture with the d pawn, you play b6, forcing black to capture the pawn on b6, and now nothing can stop the advance of the d pawn. And if black have captured here with the b pawn first, then this would be your winning move. Because now you're forcing black to capture the d pawn with their c pawn and making room for the advance of the b pawn. Alright, so now we know that when you have a pawn majority like this, you can easily win. And you can win if you have a pawn wall on the 5th rank with any number of pawns against an opponent who has a pawn wall on the 7th rank with fewer number of pawns. You can also win if you have a pawn wall of 3 pawns versus 3 pawns. Well, if you had a pawn minority, 3 pawns versus 4 pawns, you cannot win. But if you had a pawn minority with 4 pawns versus 5 pawns, even if there were 6 or 7 pawns, you can still break through here and win with white. And we also know that if we had only 2 pawns versus 2 pawns opposing each other like this, you cannot break through. In this case, actually, black are winning because their king is now closer to the pawns and he can capture them from behind. But if those 2 pawns were shifted 1 square to the left, then you can win with white. In this case, black cannot stop white to promote on b8. As you can see, in 2 moves white are promoting. And it didn't matter how many pawns black had to start off with. There could have been 4 more black pawns here. White are still breaking through here and promoting a queen in 2 moves. All these were the most common situations that you need to remember where you can do a pawn breakthrough and win the game. Of course, there are many more complicated positions in which you might be able to break through with your pawns, but you need to analyze them individually. Like, for example, have a look at this one. What do you think about this position? Do you think you might be able to win with black if it's your turn? Now, if you want to find the winning moves yourself, hit the pause button and see if you can work out how to win. You will need to analyze every possible variation. And if you do so, you'll be pleased to find out that you can win this game if you play f4. And why is this winning? Okay, let's start analyzing. White have 4 choices here. They can either move the king, they can move the f pawn, or they can capture the f pawn with their e pawn or with their g pawn. Let's start with the king move first. Now black are winning just by moving their h pawn to h4, forcing white to capture this pawn, because if they don't, they're gonna promote on h1. So after white captures the h pawn, then black continues g3, forcing white to either capture this pawn or play f3. In either case, black can capture the e pawn and nothing can stop the promotion on e1. Obviously, in this variation, black are winning. So let's try the second variation, which was f3, but obviously this would be the easiest for black to win, just by capturing the e3 pawn, and again nothing can stop the promotion. So now we know that after f4, white have to capture this pawn. Let's try to capture the pawn first with the e pawn. What can black do now? How can they win? Well, again, the winning move is h4, forcing white to capture the h4 pawn, because if they manage to push one more square, then they can promote on h1. So after white captures the h pawn, then black can continue g3, and no matter if white captures the pawn or pushes f3, then again nothing can stop the promotion of the e pawn, and black are winning again. And now let's try the fourth choice white had after black played f4, and this was to capture the f pawn with the g pawn. Now once again h4 is winning for black. White don't have a good move with their pawns, and they can't do nothing against h3, which leads to the promotion of the h pawn, and this is how black are winning the game.